For some mystical reason, a lot of people enjoyed the review that I made about the previous episode of Better Call Saul. And not only that, but I've been asked. I've been asked to make another because people apparently enjoy hearing some positivity for once coming out of me. And I genuinely think that Better Call Saul is not just good television, it's a work of art. It's a masterpiece. It's one of those classics that people are going to talk about even years to come. Like they talk about Lost, like they talk about Stargate. So I genuinely enjoy watching this. Now, the episode is called Namaste, which is actually the license plate for Howard's car. And I found this to be really thought-provoking. I'm genuinely wondering, why is Jimmy pissed off as Howard? Because at this point, it just seems cruel and malicious. We see the episode starting up with Jimmy going into an antique shop, wanting to purchase a couple of items, clearly for not their intended purpose. He goes around trying to fling them, see how they weigh, and initially we think that maybe this is for a case that he is working on. Maybe he's trying to bend the rules a little bit in order to get a client off the hook. But no, we find out at the end of the episode that it's actually to destroy Howard's car. It's a big FU to Howard. And I genuinely do not understand why. Why does Jimmy have these loathing and absolute hateful, vindictive emotions towards Howard? Because in the beginning of season 1, we think Howard is the main antagonist. We think he's the bad guy. He's the one that doesn't want Jimmy to work at his brother law firm. But then as the season ends, we find out that, well, Howard was actually not the one behind all this. It was Jimmy's brother. And later on, Howard even recommends Jimmy to another prestigious law firm, trying to get him back on track in order for him to have a successful career. But we know how that works out. Basically, Jimmy doesn't like fitting in and being upright and following the rules. He likes bending the rules. He likes finding creative solutions. In a way, I think like Jimmy is the free spirit stuck in a corporate society, a corporate full of rules, a corporate where everyone is a cog in a machine, and he doesn't like that. He's an artist. He likes to be creative. So from that point on, it seems that him and Howard are off to a good start, and he even gives some friendly advice to Howard when HHM's company is doing really poorly. He tells Howard, you're a shitty lawyer, but you're a great salesman, which angers Howard, and Jimmy says, that's it, keep that anger and go out there and sell some products. So he actually seems to be friendly with Howard at that time, but there is something that clicks from that moment to this episode, something that makes Jimmy really loathe Howard. And I think all of this starts when maybe Howard is upset over Chuck's death, because up to that point it seems that Jimmy and Howard were on good relations. But when Howard tells Jimmy that one of the reasons Chuck might have killed himself is because he tried to buy him out from the company, and that whole insurance thing, maybe that is when Jimmy is actually putting the blame on Howard. Now, if you remember in the previous seasons, the insurance thing was Jimmy's idea of getting back at Chuck, and it all went downhill. It snowballed from there to Chuck's death. So maybe Howard telling Jimmy that his brother might have killed himself because of the insurance fiasco is why he is putting the hatred and the loathing for his brother death onto Howard. I'm just speculating. I'm sure we're going to find out in future episodes. But it definitely seems not fair, especially since Howard just came to Jimmy at a dinner and asked him to work for HHM. And even beyond that, like, not only does he shake his hand, he gives him a proper hug as a good friend, a good old buddy, an acquaintance, which it seems that he would be honored if he were to work at HHM. And in return, Jimmy just decides to destroy Howard's car. And I think what really is going to push away everyone from Jimmy is the fact that he just doesn't want to talk about what he is feeling. He doesn't want to talk about the last conversation Chuck had with him, where Chuck told him that he never cared much about Jimmy and says like the most hurtful things imaginable in order to push him away. That is the last conversation that he had with his brother. And Ken doesn't understand why Jimmy is now hating his brother. And Howard doesn't understand this either. So no one really gets what is going on through Jimmy's mind. The fact that he doesn't want to share this with anyone is what is going to push people away, because from their perspective, he is acting completely irrational. And finally, I want to make a point that there is a big parallel to be drawn with Breaking Bad at this point. And that parallel is that the bad guy of the show, which in this case is Jimmy, because we know he's going to end up a criminal, even though we like him, is offered a way out, is offered a way to redeem himself in a way, to get out of crime. In Breaking Bad, Walter White is offered many possibilities, but one of the major ones is that they can just sell the barrels of methamphetamine that they got and use that money to start a new life. Call the vacuum clean dispenser guy and start a new life with his family. And Walter doesn't want that. He wants to remain in the criminal business because he wants to build that empire. It's his ego that keeps him locked into this life of crime. And here we also have the same thing. Jimmy is offered a way out. He can start working at HHM, and none of the life of crime that he's going to go through, none of the events from Breaking Bad are going to take place if he would just accept the deal and be a normal person at HHM company. And he might even ascend to the position of partner, because clearly he has such a startling relationship with Howard. Like, Howard wants to make this okay. Howard feels indebted to Jimmy, and I genuinely think that if he were to take the job, eventually he would get promoted to partner and live up a life of luxury and have a very successful lawyer career. But just like in Breaking Bad, Jimmy doesn't take the deal. So it's going to be interesting to see where this is going to go. Now, I give to Better Call Saul, the reason I say it's good cinema is that it's the only TV show which can make something so mundane, such as cleaning a fryer, look so goddamn epic. Or remember when they tried to swap those heart pills? Those 5 minutes seemed like 5 hours. They managed to reach out and grab our emotions by the proverbial balls and keep us glued to the television. It's that good. The only other medium that does this, making something so mundane seem so epic, seems to be anime, like in Death Note when the guy eats a bag of chips. It's like the most epic thing ever. And it's interesting because you're watching this and you're wondering, is Gus going to kill this kid? Which isn't really at fault for the greaser. It's all because Gus is a little bit stressed with business not going 100% his way, that he pours his misfortune onto this kid. And I think one of the things that this works is that everyone can relate to this. We all had our boss or our teacher or, our superior that had a bad day, completely unrelated to you, and is now trying to pour all his misery onto you and is making your day bad, even though you didn't do anything wrong. And this is what Gus does to this kid, and it's heartbreaking, I was thinking about the time when I was at the hospital and I would know that a doctor who had a bad day or something that happened in his life, and it would start pouring it on me and my colleagues, and it was really annoying, but, you just have to deal with it. And it also shows that Gus cares about his employers, I guess, because he doesn't allow the actual people to get caught. He gives them a heads up. Yes, the police is monitoring this. Make sure that you run. And they manage to escape while leaving only the money behind and a couple of street rats that probably don't even work for Gus. They're people that they found on the street to push the packages. And what I really love about the way the show writers do their magic is that they use very tiny segments that last for a couple of seconds, but they say 1,000 words about the character. So here we have the kid finally going home, and Gus notices that the fryer is not arranged to his liking. It's out of order compared to the others, and he just nudges it a little bit in order to make them look all the same. And this shows a lot about Gus's character. He is the corporate man. He is the embodiment of the corporation. And corporations do not like randomness. They do not like chaos. They like to know things in advance. They like order. And they like to make plans for 5 years in the future. So when chaos comes to Gus's life, and there is this randomness element that the guy that he hired could be caught by the cops, it takes him out of his element. It makes him agitated. And this shows him lashing out against his employees. And only when this issue is resolved and is put to rest, order is being reestablished. So just the fact that Gus manages to rearrange the last friar to his liking, it shows that he is now back in control. He feels as if the situation has stabilized and the things are going his way. Mike, he seems to get himself into a predicament. He really can't cope with the fact that he killed what appears to be a man that he really liked, an innocent man, Ziegler. And the reason Ziegler ended up dead was because he just didn't realize what he got himself into. He didn't realize who he done business with. He thought it's not going to be a big problem if he just goes out for a day to meet his wife, but apparently that was fatal for him. So Mike had to kill him in a way also to cover his tracks and not be a liability for Gus, showing that he can kill. Shows Gus that he is not a law enforcement officer anymore, shows Gus that he can do what needs to be done, and shows Gus that these people are rare to find. So Gus decided to keep him around, but that doesn't mean that Mike is able to cope with himself. He is not the Mike we see in Breaking Bad yet. So he ends up screaming at the only person that he cares about in his life, which is his little girl. And because of that, he goes back into the street next to the guys that almost beat him up the first time, and gets beaten up severely and wakes up in a monastery. And from what it looks like, from the way the color palette is, I think this might be Mexico, because the Breaking Bad show writers, whenever they have something take place in Mexico, they change the color palette of the background. It's a lot more reddish. It's a reddish hue. So it's going to be interesting to see who carried him there and why. If I'm right and he is in Mexico. So the last part of the plot, I guess, would be with Kim and Jimmy. So Jimmy is working his magic in order to get a client off the hook. And this is something that a lot of people who don't work in criminal courts realize. You see, this is not like the movies. There's a lot of Ace Attorney type movies where the lawyer does some shenanigans and then the witness just ends up going into a rant. That doesn't happen, and I will tell you why it doesn't happen. It's not that there aren't smart people that could manipulate someone into spilling the beans, but it's the fact that the lawyer, every day, he has to go to court. So that judge and that DA that he is working for a case now is going to have to work for another case tomorrow. So he needs to maintain a good relationships with the judge and the DA. Not necessarily in the sense that they need to be buddies, but in the sense that they need to maintain a professional and normal human relation. Not necessarily that you want to be buddies with them, but at least to the point where you just keep your head down and you're just another lawyer for the judge. And what Jimmy did by switching the defendant is something that is, obviously, if you do something like that in real life, you're probably going to get that judge's reaction going, Mr. Goodman. But what it also does is like you're going to be the talk of the town. Again, these people know each other. The judges know each other. You know, they talk on their lunchtime sometimes. The prosecutors know each other. And you're going to be like, oh yeah, that is that lawyer that is up to shenanigans. And this is not going to go necessarily favorable in your way. So this is why lawyers don't do things like that in real life. But it was like really funny when you finally get to see Jimmy playing his tricks. And we also get to see Kim being eaten alive because it seems she's got a little bit of Jimmy in her, if you know what I mean. She also doesn't like the fact that if you play by the rules, if you're a cog in a machine, you end up hurting people. So even if you follow the rules to the T, some people can get hurt. And this is what I like to compare Jimmy and his brother. Like, Jimmy does the wrong things for good reasons, but Chuck was doing the right things for wrong reasons. And I think like this is what the show really tries to hammer in. The difference between following the rules and doing bad, or not following the rules and doing good, and walking that line. That's the theme that I think most of the episodes in Better Call Saul have. And Kim is trying to initially convince his bank to purchase another plot of land to leave that guy alone with his house. And she's trying to speak from a corporate perspective. It's like, it's going to be more profitable for us if we do this. The value of the land is going to increase. But the banks don't want to hear it. So what ends up happening is that she suggests that Jimmy hires this guy, and Jimmy, for some reason, shows him a picture of a man fucking a horse in order to get his attention, because the logo of Mesa Verde, the bank that Kim works at, is a cowboy on a horse. So he's like, yeah, I really hate that bank, and this is, what I'm going to do. It's like, I want to be the man fucking the horse. So he actually goes on the internet and finds a picture. And this is, like why I like Better Call Saul, because it surprises you, it shocks you with the novelties and the inventions that the writers come up with. And if you look at the trailer for the next episode, it seems that Kim actually tells the bank that Jimmy is her Jimmy. That the guy the client hired is with her, which I think might get the bank to realize that, oh shit, he might know a couple of things. he might be privileged to some information that might get us into trouble, and maybe this is the plan, is to somehow leak some information. And Kim goes like, well, I warned you, it's my Jimmy, he's the one doing this, I don't have any control over him. And in the meantime, she can even say, well, yeah, I broke up with him, blah, blah, blah. So that, Jimmy can use that information in order to make it more difficult and make Mesa lose more money by just trying to get that land. So it's interesting. And she's not lying to her client, because remember, she actually said this, I don't want to lie to my client again. And while she doesn't seem 100% honest, she's not lying if she's going to admit, yeah, this is my Jimmy. He's working for the client. Like, there is no lie there. So anyway, let me know what you think. I'm really excited for the next episode. This one wasn't as action-packed, but this is what I like about Better Call Saul. Even when the show is just losing a little bit of tempo, it's going a little bit more peaceful and less action-packed. It's still a great watch and great cinematography.